Greetings, and welcome to the All Facts Matter podcast, where we push back against corporate media propaganda with facts, evidence, and data. I'm Peter, the author of All Facts Matter. Let's begin. Depending on which media outlet you choose for your news, and depending on what day of the week it is, President Trump's proposed tariff strategy is either an economic apocalypse that will impoverish the American consumer, or it's an economic masterstroke that will restore American economic vitality. You have the proponents for both sides are constantly bringing out their experts to argue their side and to tell in obsessive detail how wrong the other side is. That arrogant certainty of their position is the one thing both sides have in common. So which argument is correct? Are Trump's tariffs a hidden tax that's going to eat away at an already constrained American wallet? Are they a necessary part of a healthy economic policy? Despite the bloviations and ramblings of the experts, the answer is a confusing yes, but perhaps no, it really depends. In other words, the experts are simply guessing. They don't know. They don't have a crystal ball, although they pretend that they do. What they're putting out is mostly nonsense. Now, let's be clear on what we're talking about when we talk about a tariff. A tariff is a trade barrier. It usually comes in the form of an additional tax or a duty levied on importers and imported goods. It may or may not be passed on to consumers. The common presumption is that they eventually will be. And they exist in international trade as a way of protecting domestic producers. To a certain extent, they raise revenue for a government, but the primary focus is we want to protect our domestic companies, we want to protect our domestic suppliers, we want to protect our domestic industries. It's basically giving an advantage to domestic firms over international firms. Yeah. And the protectionist argument is the fundamental purpose of a tariff. Is that the argument very often revolves around protecting jobs. That a tariff is going to keep a domestic supplier going. It's going to make them produce more. It's going to let them expand their market. And therefore they'll be able to hire more people or keep more people on the payroll. Is that it's a way of protecting domestic labor from the predations of cheap foreign labor. This is the argument that's frequently put forward in favor of tariffs. And the idea being that because some countries have these structurally lower labor costs, that what a tariff does is compensate for that unfair, uneven advantage that a foreign manufacturer might have in that regard by raising the cost of their goods when they come into market, so that a domestic supplier is playing on a presumably more or less level playing field. You'll sometimes also see tariffs used as retaliation. If a country or a firm is trying to dump a bunch of product on a market at an artificially low rate, at an artificially low price, so that they can maybe capture market share or in some other way try to disadvantage other producers. One response the government will have will be to slap a retaliatory tariff on on that country or on that firm. Now, a good example of what retaliatory tariffs look like are some of the tariffs that Donald Trump applied against China during his first term of office. Back in 2018, Trump essentially began a trade war with China by applying a number of tariffs which were primarily retaliatory in nature. And he began with washing machines and solar cell manufacturing. How those two wound up in the same trade negotiation is itself kind of fascinating. But the assessment of the U.S. trade representative, who was Robert Lighthizer at the time, was that Chinese firms were essentially dumping washing machines on the U.S. market. And like I said, by dumping, remember that's selling at a lower, at an artificially low price to disadvantage other suppliers. And so the response that Trump went with after getting his recommendations from Lighthizer was to impose a tariff, an additional tax, an additional duty on Chinese washing machines. And the way the tariff was structured is that on the first 1.2 million washing machines that were imported in the first year, there was going to be an additional 20% levy just to bring them into the country. On those 1.2 million units, that would be backed off to 18% after a year, and then a year later, in year 3, it would be back down to 16%. After those 1.2 million units were imported, everything else would be imported, would get a levy of 50% of its price. In year 2, that would back down to 45%, and in year 3, that would back down to 40%. On parts that were imported to maintain these washing machines, again, you would have a first-year tariff of 50% of the price versus 45% in year 2, 40% in year 3. Now, the issues was one of basically a punitive response, a retaliatory response. So part of the way the tariff was structured is that some of these parts would be excluded from the tariff in the first year, and that list would then expand in the second year, and it would expand again in the third year. And what Lighthizer was going for is that, yes, we're going to impose a tariff. We're going to push back against your dumping practices, but our end goal is we want beneficial trade relations. And this was at the time, this was especially true for the solar cell manufacturing piece. That they wanted to get to a point where both sides had a beneficial trade relationship, where retaliatory tariffs were not needed as a part of the equation. How sincere that was, how productive that was, how effective that was as a negotiation strategy, is still being debated. Trump put several, as most of us know, Trump put several more tariffs on China, and as well as other countries, and economists are still arguing about how well they worked or didn't work. But now that Trump has won re-election, tariffs are coming back into the picture, and the corporate media is going out touting its view of things. And of course, what corporate media is telling everybody is that prices are going to go up. That if Trump imposes these tariffs, you're going to have inflation. They're rolling out all kinds of statistics. One metric estimate that's been produced by the Peterson Institute for International Economics is that the Trump's tariffs will cost the average U.S. household about $2,600 per year. Now, if that turns out to be the case, that's going to be a pretty significant price hit. People would notice that. That's not what Trump is shooting for, but they're saying that that's what's going to happen. They're also making the argument that this article, which came out on MSNBC, was that the tariffs are basically a tax. That and it's a tax that's going to be paid by taxpayers, which is to say you and me. That even though the guy says, "Well, I'm not arguing against tariffs, but they're a tax and you're going to pay it." That's kind of an argument against. That's kind of an argument against tariffs. So why are you pretending? And this is the thesis that's being proposed. Even when even in the supposedly objective analyses of tariffs that such as this one that came from the New York Times, we have the argument that tariffs are going to hurt American manufacturers. That tariffs are going to drive up their manufacturing costs, resulting in less manufacturing and less manufacturing employment, and all the consequences that proceed from that. Yeah, and just in case you didn't get the message, Forbes has been chiming in, basically saying that not only is it going to cause inflation, but all the things that he's trying to accomplish with tariffs is going to make the situation worse. That it's all going to backfire, and it's just going to be a complete mess. It's just a horrible thing. It's not going to work. That it's all going to get that it's all going to get put on the consumer. It's all going to come back to you and me. It's all going to hit us in the wallets, and it's going to make the U.S. economy much worse. That's what the corporate media is putting out. On the flip side, we have people like this op-ed piece from Scott Bessent. Scott Bessent is a name that's been bandied around as being a potential player on Trump's economic team. He was put forward as a possible candidate for Treasury Secretary at one point, and he's been taking to the media, basically trying to call BS on the anti-tariff narrative. He's arguing, well, tariffs were Alexander Hamilton's favorite tool, and we should go back to how we were doing things back then. Alexander Hamilton, of course, was the first Treasury Secretary in 1789, and his argument is that tariffs, they not only raise revenue for the government, but they protect industry in this country, and they're also an essential negotiating tool for obtaining favorable trade relationships with other countries. Yeah, one of the arguments he makes against for tariffs on China is that, well, we opened up our markets to China, hoping that it would liberalize the country, hoping that it would convert that country into a more democratic society. That hasn't happened. Instead, they've been predatory. They've been predatory towards the United States in particular, and it's time to push back against that. And we need to start protecting our own, and not not taking action against China's aggressive export policies has endangered American economic security and American national security. Yeah. And as far as the argument that tariffs raise prices, he just simply says, no, they don't. That prices have gone down and not up as a result of, even during the period when Trump initiated his tariffs. Yeah. Breitbart weighs in. We had this article by John Carney the other day, making substantially the same point and keying off of comments that were made by Walmart Chief Financial Officer Don David Rainey in speaking about Walmart's relationship with Target, which is a competitive competing discount retailer here in the United States. And Rainey is pointing out that retailers like Walmart don't want to raise prices. They want to keep prices low. Their business model is keeping prices low. And yes, there are times when prices go up, but as a general rule, they try to keep prices down. And one of the things that Carney points out is that when you look at Target's recent quarterly results and Walmart's recent quarterly results, that these two companies especially are between themselves locked in a bit of a price war. So that with or without tariffs, they don't have an option of raising prices right now. They couldn't raise prices even if they wanted to, because that would be giving the other side a leg up in their own little price war. And so with that type of situation going on, tariffs do not cause prices to go up because retailers don't have that option. That they can't raise the prices, that they've got to find other ways to deal with the additional cost imposed by tariffs. Yeah, and so one of the things that Carney goes on to point out is that one way that companies like Walmart can deal with tariffs is they can source their goods from places other than China. So that one impact of a tariff strategy is to accelerate the decoupling of the U.S. economy from supply chains which originate in China. That these supply chains should originate someplace else and basically get our business the hell out of China. So that there's a larger positive objective, not just simply about having you know, a favorable environment for domestic producers, but also achieving a better global strategy by decoupling from China, which has not been, the argument goes, has been not been a good partner when it comes to international trade. So what's the reality? Well, here's where the anti-tariff argument really runs into problems. Because the argument is always, well, Trump's tariffs are going to push prices up. Only when they were imposed in 2018, they didn't. We know when Trump's tariffs were enacted, they, January 2018 through, primarily to the summer of 2018. This is when the tariffs were first really aggressively applied. And when we look at the prices of durable goods, we don't see any inflationary movement. We don't see the prices trending up. Not until not until after COVID do we see prices going up. Non-durable goods, same thing. Prices went up a little bit, but then they stabilized. You see some volatility, but we're not seeing a pronounced trend up. There is no inflation here. You not only do you not have inflation attributable to tariffs, you don't have inflation, period, in these in goods prices during the pre-COVID years under Donald Trump. And if you look at the personal consumption expenditures price index, which this is the index that the Fed likes to use for its inflation metrics, we see the same thing. We see deflation in durable goods, prices going down, prices staying more or less the same in non-durable goods. But that's not inflation. The argument is tariffs are supposed to jack prices up. Well, prices it didn't go up. Trump imposed tariffs, prices didn't go up. What they said would happen didn't. In a very demonstrable way, it did not happen. And what really makes it puts a stake in their argument, drives a stake through the heart in their argument, is that when you look at import prices, again, we know when the tariffs were applied. We know when they began. Import prices fell after the tariffs were applied. Inflation is prices going up. If tariffs were going to generate inflation, this should not have happened. So to say, oh, tariffs are going to cause inflation. Well, explain import price deflation after tariffs under Donald Trump. If you're going to make that argument, you have to explain this. Simply saying that they're going to push prices up, well, they didn't before, so you're not looking at the information. You're ignoring a key aspect of what actually happened when we did the tariffs before. Now, one thing we have to realize, though, is that while goods prices did go down under Trump, they've been going up recently, as we all know. We had a tremendous bit of inflation first couple of years that Joe Biden was in office. Durable goods, non-durable goods prices rose over the first year and a half of the Biden-Harris administration by about 20%. Pretty steep increases. They have stabilized since then at that high level, but we have a significant. We're in an environment of significantly rising prices. And again, if you look at the personal consumption expenditures index, we see the same thing, and we see the same trends at about the same time frame. Lots of inflation, stabilizing, We see some deflation in durable goods. Most notably, and this is where we have to be really careful about looking at the tariff argument, is we are seeing prices rise for imports as well. That we had significant increases in import prices, some stabilization. Automotive imports have continued to increase, but the general trend, even among capital goods and consumer goods, has been upward. So import prices are going up right now. Now, what's important to realize about this is that while the tariffs were imposed under Donald Trump, Joe Biden not only didn't remove them, they were not one of the things that he undid on day one when he took office. He actually increased them during this period. So if tariffs are inflationary, then Joe Biden and the Biden and Harris administration imposed additional tariffs at a time when import prices were already rising. And so if tariffs are inflationary, then Joe Biden did something that was actually inflationary, that they made the situation worse. And more to also, if tariffs are inflationary, Joe Biden could have alleviated consumer price inflation in 2022 by removing those tariffs, and he didn't do it. So if tariffs are this horrible, horrible thing, why did the Biden-Harris administration, the administration that we were supposed was going to have, was supposed to know what they were doing and was supposed to be the, have the better argument on tariffs, why did they not remove the tariffs that were imposed by Donald Trump? They had the power, they had the chance, they didn't do it. Even when prices were going up. If tariffs are inflationary, then Joe Biden basically looked at tariffs and said, well, we don't care, we're going to leave the tariffs in place, we don't care about inflation. Again, there's a fundamental disconnect between the inflation narrative and what's really happening, because if tariffs are that inflationary, if they're inflationary at all, Joe Biden could have easily alleviated consumer price inflation in 2021 and 2022 by removing those tariffs, and he didn't do it. And prices were going up. So maybe tariffs aren't as inflationary. Maybe they're not the only thing to consider. And that is something we do need to realize, because one point to remember about what happened in Trump's first term is that when we look at import prices over the long haul, going back even before Obama, yes, import prices were going up and up and up and up during the Obama years, but around 2013, 2014, this is 2 years before Donald Trump comes into office, 2 years before the tariffs, 2 years before all that, prices start going down across the board. You have a little decline, a lot of decline, a whole lot of decline, but import prices began trending down well before Donald Trump came on the scene. Before Donald Trump even goes down the escalator in 2015 to say he's running for office, import prices are coming down. So when Donald Trump imposed his tariffs, he was imposing it in a deflationary price trend, in a deflationary environment for import prices. So that even if you concede the point that tariffs are an upward price pressure, which we should concede because they do present an upward price pressure, you have other forces pushing prices down. And this is why we get the muddled response of yes, no, maybe when it comes to are tariffs going to be inflationary? Because it really, yes, tariffs are going to represent an upward price pressure. All things being equal, if you apply a tariff on a good, you're going to increase the cost of that good to importers. You're going to increase the cost of that good to distributors. You're going to increase it, and eventually you will increase the price of that good. That's a fair statement. The problem is that not everything is equal. Things don't stay the same. Yes, tariffs are an upward price pressure. No question about it. Anything that is going to increase cost into the marketplace is going to be an upward pressure on prices. They're going to act to generally push prices up. That much is true. But no one price pressure is ever the only pressure involved. And whether there's inflation or deflation depends on what the totality of forces are doing. Tariffs are but one part of that equation. And Trump took advantage, or got lucky, depending on how you want to view things, of a favorable situation with import prices where he could get away with tariffs. Yes, tariffs are an upward price pressure, but you had an abundance of downward price pressures that were going to nullify the effect of that. And so the inflation doesn't happen. That is really what we can say about what happened with Trump's tariffs the first time. Is that going to be the case the second time around? Well, when we look at goods prices currently, we did have a lot of inflation in 2021, 2022, but for the last year or so, consumer prices, goods prices, are coming down. We have actual deflation for goods, for durable and non-durable goods, throughout the bulk of 2024 when we look at the consumer price index. So we have a deflationary environment for goods prices. We confirm that we have a deflationary environment for goods prices when we look at the personal consumption expenditures index. For goods in this country, prices are coming down. Oh, so this means we can apply tariffs and get away with it. Yeah, not so fast, because import prices are still going up. Now remember, these are the prices, capital goods, automotive goods, consumer goods. These are the prices that are going to be impacted by tariffs. These are the prices that are going to have an additional cost placed on them by tariffs. And they're already rising. So if Trump applies tariffs, these prices are going to rise even more, because there is no downward price pressure. There is no excessive pressure pushing prices down to nullify the impact of tariffs. With the prevailing trend of prices going up, a tariff is simply going to magnify that existing trend. And that is the trend that we have in import prices. They are going up. But it's only on import prices. Goods prices overall, the prices are still coming down. So what's the likely outcome for Trump's tariffs? Somewhat higher import prices, enough to end deflation in goods prices in this country? Maybe, maybe not. Trump has some leeway with that for tariffs to be applied. He's got some maneuvering room. Yes, import prices are likely to go up. Prices overall, not so much. And that's why I come back to the title of my Substack, the title of my podcast. All facts matter. Yeah. The corporate media narrative that tariffs are going to be instantly inflationary, they're going to be a huge detrimental tax. In the reality, that's likely an exaggeration. But so too is the idea that tariffs are going to be an economic benefit, a pure economic benefit. No, there are going to be some prices that go up. There is going to be some upward price pressure on things. That is going to happen. Is that going to produce rampant inflation right now? No. Looking at the current state of goods prices in this country, no. Trump does have some room to get away with tariffs. And does he have enough room to use tariffs as a part of an overall effective trade policy? Well, he's certainly got some room to use tariffs. It's on him to generate that effective trade policy. He's going to, him and Robert Lighthizer and the rest of his economic team are going to have to produce an effective, policy for dealing with China on trade issues, for dealing with other countries on trade issues. And their success at that is going to determine whether or not tariffs are effective. But neither side can say, well, this is what's going to be the result. Yes, there's going to be some things we can say, yes, there's going to be an upward price pressure, but to say, oh, well, it's going to generate this much, no, they don't know. They can't know. Because there are so many other things dependent on what other countries and other firms do. There's this crystal ball. It's projection. It's speculation. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to make them. I don't make models of these things. I'm not going to make any predictions except two. I'm going to predict that when Trump's tariffs do get enacted, the immediate impacts are not going to be what either side projects them to be. It's not going to be the exact outcome. And I'm also going to predict that whatever pricing fluctuations occur, once enacted, Trump's tariffs will be blamed for everything that corporate media doesn't like, no matter what. Yeah, no matter what happens, Trump is going to get blamed. Corporate media will see to that. That's my prediction. Yeah. Reality. Tariffs are not an economic panacea. They're not an economic poison. They're only going to be effective if they're part of an overall robust strategy to ensure that there are vibrant and beneficial trading relationships. But there's many other pieces that have to go into that. You can't look at tariffs in isolation. And looking at them in isolation is the wrong way to look at them. You have to look at all of the facts, because their ultimate impact, tariffs' ultimate impact on prices, is dependent on what the other trends in prices are. We have downward trends in prices right now, so tariffs are not going to be supremely inflationary when your overall trend in prices is down. You have to look at all of the facts. You have to look at all of the data. You have to look at all of the environment that you're putting the tariffs in. How will the tariffs turn out? We don't know. We do know that Trump's got a little bit of leeway, but that's what we know. That's what we can say. And that concludes this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative and useful. I hope it shed a little bit of light on what's actually being likely to happen with tariffs. If you do find this presentation helpful and you like it, please share it to your friends and colleagues. Let other people know about my work. That's how my work gets out. If you enjoy my work, please also consider making a one-time contribution or becoming a paid subscriber to All Facts Matter. Your support is what keeps my work going, and I greatly appreciate everybody's support, including the free subscribers, people who share my work and comment on my work and have things to say about my work. Your engagement is a big part of what keeps me going in this, and I greatly appreciate all of your contributions. And thank you for listening, and have a nice day.